Giants are world champions. This is going to be a tough play. The Cubs. Stays. Makes the play. It's over. And the Cubs have finally 8-7-10.
Woo! Welcome to the best sports podcast on the planet. I am your host, Brandon Combs. Tonight, I am not joined by Soup Boss. He could not be with us, unfortunately. He is driving to Dallas to pick up his son from the airport. So hopefully, he is watching this in his car as he is driving. And stay safe, Soup Boss. Safe travels. Hope everything's all right, and we'll see you on Tuesday. But I am joined by a familiar face. Please welcome back to the show, Mr. Wayne G. Wayne, how's it going, buddy?
It's going pretty good, man. I just am excited to be back on here. I think that people who've been listening to the show from the start, they're going to remember me helping you start the show off as your original co-host, kind of transitioning Soup Boss over. So it's cool to be on here. Obviously, I'm with Infinity Sports, so I'm guessing all of our diehard RTF crew, they know who Infinity Sports is. They know what 12 is greater than 9 means, so it's just great to be on the show and be able to kind of just talk with you.
I love that shirt, man. You're talking trash without talking trash. I love it. I love it. I am all about trash talk. I am a sports guy through and through, and trash talk is part of every sport, and so I absolutely love it. Anyway, we're going to talk some NFL today. We're going to talk some NBA. We are going to get to our top 5 baseball movies of all time. Play a little spinoff of the Infinity Sports Infinity 5, their great segment that they have over there. They really do have a great product. So for you Triple Shot Sports fans, if you have not checked out Infinity Sports just yet, definitely get over there. We got Wayne and Sully. They do an amazing job, and they are a great crew over there. So definitely check them out. And
Jesse joins us too.
Oh yeah. Oh, I always forget about that guy, man. I easy face to forget, I guess. Anyway, so let's get into some NFL talk. I'm not sure, Wayne, if you saw this, but it really made me chuckle when I saw it. The Seahawks cut Kemah Siverand. I'm not even sure if I'm pronouncing that right. It doesn't even really matter. This guy was a non-drafted, invitee to training camp. And this moron decided he was going to go pick up a woman and dress her up in Seahawks gear and try to sneak her into his hotel room as they are doing training camp during COVID. Now, I don't know about you, Wayne, but I mean, you're not even a star. You're not a guy who contributes. You're an undrafted invitee. I really think that you have bigger things to be worrying about. And not only that, but how big is this girl that you're dressing in Seahawks gear that you are expecting people to mistake for a Seahawks player? I don't know. What do you think, Wayne?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's definitely 2 mistakes he made there, right? So the first one, like you said, he's an undrafted free agent. This is a kid who was a wide receiver at Texas A&M. He couldn't hack it as a wide receiver. He transfers to Oklahoma State. They convert him to a defensive back. He had 1 tackle in 2019. NFL.com did not even have him listed on their draft tracker. That's how far down the list he was of defensive backs. He gets luckily invited to camp. I'm guessing because he knows somebody or maybe one of his teammates got on the team, something. And then he goes and he blows it by doing something stupid like this. And then dressing her up in Seahawks gear, like that's going to pass. It reminds me of way back in the day. I used to work at a department store that had somebody stole a video game console and they put it in a bag and then they put paid stickers all over the bag.
Right.
Like,
and you're a movie guy. Have you ever seen A Fish Called Wanda?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, when he's trying to cover her up and not let anybody see that she's a mermaid and do all this, dude. Like, what were you thinking? How, Soup Boss says it all the time. These guys are millionaire children, and I get to the point where I'm just like, at some point you have to be an adult. At some point you have to have responsibility. At some point you have to take responsibility. And this idiot decides, you know what? I really, in these couple of weeks that we're here for training camp and getting everything ready, there is going to be no preseason. I really need to make a name for myself, but man, do I really need to get laid. Like, what the hell is going on in your head? You're trying to become an NFL roster. You're trying to get put on an NFL roster, I should say. And instead, you're more worried about getting a piece of tail. And now you have no job. Now you're not on a roster. Now you're not even getting an opportunity to be on a roster, all because you wanted to get some tail. It's unbelievable to me.
Yeah, and I'm betting she was probably a 4 or a 5, right? And like, dude, you make the roster, you can start bringing back 7s and 8s. Like, you get the roster first, man.
Yeah, absolutely. He definitely got this girl off of, some website, I'm sure, met her online and was like, hey, I got an idea. It's been a while. I can get you in. Just come to the hotel lobby. We'll go to the bathroom. You can go ahead and change. Like, come on, man. Now, on the flip side of that, though, let me ask you this. If this was Russell Wilson or if this was Tyler Lockett, do we even know about it?
Oh, if it was Russell Wilson, we would know about it for sure because of his whole publicized thing with Sierra not wanting to have sex until they got married. And so it would be kind of a big story in that sense. But would he be cut? No, not a chance. It's just the fact that he was undrafted free agent. You know what the stakes are. I mean, if you're a superstar, you can do that kind of stuff. You get slapped on the wrist. If you're not a superstar, don't act like a superstar.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. Some of our guys are already chiming in. Part-time nerd, what's up, guys? Who is it? Strikeout Beer here. Soup Boss looks different. Hey, he got a lot uglier overnight. I'm not sure what happened. He lost the beard and then turned into Wayne G. I'm not sure. Soup Boss is listening.
Nice.
And then Soup Boss, you'll like this. Alan has already chimed in with his Go Cardinals crap. Man, I hate that you've turned my son into this. Every week he chimes in with Go Cardinals. Drives me nuts. All right, but moving on. There was more news other than people trying to sneak women into their hotel rooms. Kittle and Kelsey, man, these guys went and set records for contracts for tight ends. And look, Michael Buckheiser put a thing out there and said that a tight end shouldn't be paid that much money, and that Kittle isn't worth the contract he signed. And then his boy Kelsey, because he is a Chiefs fan, gets signed to a little bit of a less deal, but in terms of he signed for less years, so it was around the same annual salary. And he just says that the tight end isn't worth it, and I beg to differ. I'm not sure about you, Wayne, but I mean, you look at a guy like Kittle, who can be a tight end. He could be a fullback. He could be a running back. He could be a wide receiver, and he's a damn good pass blocker. I think he's well worth the money. I think he is, Rob Gronkowski 2.0, but a Rob Gronkowski that hopefully won't be riddled by the injury bug every year.
No, I think all those guys deserve the money. And I think that I like to break things down into statistics and to numbers because it's hard to argue those things. It's easy to argue somebody's opinion. Like I can say, hey, they deserved it. And people can say, no, they didn't. But let me put it into numbers for you, right? The top 5 wide receivers in the NFL last year, which is what we're talking about. Tight ends have kind of become more of an extra wide receiver. The top 5 wide receivers in the NFL last year averaged $19.25 million per year in salary. And their production was roughly 30% more receiving than the tight ends. So that means that the tight ends should make 30% less than them, which would be $15 million a year. Well, the top 5 tight ends get paid $12.6 million a year. So if anything, those new contracts, those guys are underpaid.
Yeah. Look, we had, that's another conversation we had, last week about athletes and underpaid or overpaid and all that stuff. But these guys, I mean, they're your obviously. Are there any 2 better tight ends or any 1 better tight end than either of these 2 in the game right now?
You could make an argument for Ertz, but I think that it's pretty much consensus. Those are the top 2 guys.
I mean, I think you got your Ertz, and then can't think of his name right now, out of Dallas. Was out of Dallas and now is playing somewhere else, I believe. Their longtime tight end. Oh, I can't think of his name right now. Jason Witten. There you go. Those 2 guys I think are guys who have just sustained long careers and who are, they're viable options and they're always going to be consistent, but they're not on the level of Kittle and Kittle and Kelsey. They're just not there. And I mean, both of these guys were both in the Super Bowl last year. Both of these guys were pretty prime weapons on both of their offenses. Kittle is probably the biggest threat for the 49ers. Kelsey, I mean, that team's just filled with studs. So, I mean, Kelsey benefits a little bit there. But look, these guys are two of the best tight ends. Their contract extensions are well-deserved. They are definitely worth the money. They are probably worth more money than a lot of the guys on their offense. So I had no problem with the contract extensions at all.
No, again, like I said, they're going to play up to him. And I know we talked, even I joined in on that conversation, I think, with the whole underpaid, overpaid conversation. To me, the only time that those terms are factual is if you are outperforming or underperforming your contract. That's when overpaid and underpaid makes sense. I don't want to hear them compared to regular jobs, but in terms of if you're underperforming, then you're overpaid. That's the way it works. Yeah. These guys, these tight ends, they are overperforming their contracts. I mean, like you said, Kittle's getting $15 million a year. That's the highest paid tight end in the NFL. And that's what the average top 5 tight end should be making. So these guys are all taking less money because they've been sold a bag of lies by NFL general managers that the tight end isn't as important as wide receivers. And just ask Tom Brady if he thinks that's true.
Yeah. And that's the other thing too. And that's why I think Kittle's pass blocking is unbelievable. He's a great pass blocker. He helps with blocking on the run games. And then he's a dominant threat in the offense. So I like his value to me. I think he's more valuable than any of the wide receivers that they got over there. And then, obviously quarterback's the most valuable position, but I would argue that he makes, his quarterback better than what a lot of tight ends make their quarterbacks.
Yeah, well, San Francisco is basically New England light, right? So, I mean, when you look at them, they rely very heavily on the tight end. But not only that Jimmy Garoppolo has become somewhat of a game manager. I think he's better than what he's been doing, but what he's been doing is being a game manager. And game managers thrive off of play action. And tight ends benefit from play action, more so than wide receivers. Plus the fact that they don't really have a big name wide receiver on the outside. So really, he's their number 1 and number 2 target. And like you said, with the whole run blocking and the pass blocking is huge because now you're not going out for a route, but you're still taking away a pass defender because they have to be cognizant of you. So he's just such a huge thing. He should be making $18-19 million a year, and that would be very fair for what he does in that offense. So 15 to me is a bargain.
I watched him a lot last year with the Niners, and the way he picks up blitzers is unreal to me. Just even like a little chip block before he goes out to give Jimmy G just that little extra second or two to get that ball off. He is unreal. I love George. I'll watch him every day of the week. And so I'm excited. I mean, football's only 25 days away from kicking off, and I'm really excited. I'm not sure how it'll do without fans. I was having this conversation with a buddy of mine on Facebook today. It's going to be interesting without fans because I think more than baseball and more than hockey and more than the NBA, in the NFL, the fans have a huge dynamic. You look at places like Seattle and Kansas City. Seattle and Kansas City, they thrive on the noise that their fans are bringing. Not only in the end zones where most stadiums love having their fans, but those places are just so loud and so hard to play in. And I don't even think, even if you start piping in, fan noise like they do in baseball, and I've heard it a little bit in hockey, I don't think that you get the same feeling. I think you're going to be able to hear cadences better. I don't think hard counts are going to be as effective. I don't know. What do you think about the NFL with no fans?
Well, I think that fans are a bit of an equalizer. And so you're taking that away, and that's going to make more teams on a level playing field. I'll say, like, how good is Kansas City really if they don't play at Arrowhead? How good is Seattle if they don't play, up in Seattle, where it's so loud, like you said, and you can't hear things, and you're the opposing team. So you might have a team go in there like Green Bay, who's got a phenomenal all-time great quarterback, right? And if he can't hear and his teammates can't hear, right, then he's going to have a hard time. But now put him up against that Seattle defense with no noise at all, right? How good are they? Let's find out how good they really are without the noise.
I don't think Green Bay has an all-time great quarterback, but that might be a discussion for another time. Aaron Rodgers, me and Soup Boss touched on this last week. I don't even think Aaron Rodgers is, a top 10 quarterback of all time. But like I said, that might be a conversation for another time. We might have to have you on to debate that one. smack you down in another debate.
Yeah, I mean, all time was definitely debatable, but he's definitely top 10 now. I mean, that's the Soup Boss is nuts for having him in his top 10 right now.
Yeah, no. Well, Soup Boss also had Lamar Jackson as his 10th ranked running back in the league. So Soup Boss is a little crazy all over the place. All right, so we're going to go ahead and take a quick break here, and then we will get back to it with some NBA talk. So don't go anywhere. Definitely stay with us because we've got some good stuff coming to you. Be right back.
What's going on, everybody? Make sure to tune in to the Infinity Sports Podcast. We go live on Facebook every Monday and every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on the RTF Sports page and on the Infinity Sports page. We have great interviews, great games, great sports coverage, and altogether great fun. It's a great show. If you aren't already listening to us,
it'd be a lot cooler if you did.
Dreams and I'm struggling. Do you see me? How can I lie? All up in my face, every time that I jot, every time that I stop. Take a breath for a second, when you stepping on my chest, taking shots. Keep the others down, but you never keep them down. I'm a king with my crown and a king with a king of me. Won the victory when he rose from the ground. Jesus, can't shut us that crowd. Care about the in crowd. Care about truth. That's something you don't know about. Might try to make changes, but your drawers wanna change me back to the old me. This in high school, you don't know me. No, all you do is troll me. Got so. Can you hear me?
All right, guys, that was Mesus. Again, Mesus is incredible. Has great messages in his music and just a phenomenal talent. And I can't wait to see this guy do some collaborations with some of your bigger artists. So again, that was Mesus with "Do You See Me." We got some people chiming in. We got I don't know if you know who this guy is. Says, "What's up, boys?" Never seen him before, but yeah, I don't know. I've never seen him. Mike Manhour says Seahawks already pipe in noise. Cheaters. Let's see. Yeah, he's top 4, Combs. Are you talking? Look, if you're telling me that if you're trying to say Aaron Rodgers is top 4 all time, Michael Buchheister, you're smoking something good, and I need the number to your dealer because he's clearly got the good stuff. There's no way, Aaron, if that's what you're talking about, if you're saying Aaron Rodgers is top 4 all time, you're out of your mind. Absolutely out of your mind. He's not even a top 4 right now. No way. At any rate, moving on, let's get to some NBA talk. Some we don't do too often on this show, but I figured since we had our resident NBA guy on the show today, and you know, I didn't have to hear it from Soup Boss, I figured I would talk to you a little bit. And Tim Leonard says, "I'm Professor Leonard." What's going on, Professor Leonard? How's it going? So the biggest news coming out, well, I guess not the biggest news, but for me, it was something that I was surprised by, and that is the Spurs playoff reign coming to an end after 22 years. That's to me, that's amazing because the Spurs have been a staple in the NBA for a long time. I mean, I remember, you know, in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, these guys were, I mean, constantly in the NBA finals. And for, you know, Greg Popovich, who I believe is probably the greatest coach of all time in the NBA, and I know we argued this on the Great Debate at one point, but Greg Popovich is an amazing coach. And even though they don't have the most talented team on the floor, it's just surprising to me that they couldn't even get in as an 8 seed. I know that, you know, some circumstances surrounding this year with COVID and the restart and all that stuff, but I would have, if you didn't tell me, you know, if you would have said, hey, who do you think the 8 teams are in each conference, I definitely would have had the Spurs in the West if I didn't read that they were knocked out.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, all things do and must come to an end. And I think for an idea of the dominance of a 22-year run, a 22-year playoff run, people talk about the New England Patriots and their dominance over the past 20 years or whatever it is, and how they're always in the playoffs and they always win the division and they're always in the AFC Championship. The Patriots streak is at 11. So the Spurs have doubled their playoff streak at 22. I mean, that's how dominant the Spurs have been. They won 5 championships. I think the reason that they ended up there, I mean, the biggest thing to me is maybe you didn't know that the last year that they missed the playoffs was 96-97. And that was right before they got Tim Duncan, right?
Right.
You know what else is significant about 96-97? It's also the last season before this one that they didn't have an all-star on the team. So every year they've had an all-star. This year they did not. And that's why they missed the playoffs.
Yeah, the Spurs, look, that means that 1998 was the first year of this run, incredible run was 98. And to put that in perspective, some of you guys watching the show right now weren't even alive. So you've never seen a year in which the Spurs were not in the playoffs. And look, I mean, it makes me feel old to say something like that, but it is. And Greg Popovich took it like a champ. I mean, Greg Popovich says, regardless of the streak, I don't really care about the streak. I'm still proud of my guys. I'm proud of how we performed in the bubble. So he's a class act. I do love his interviews sometimes. Sometimes his interviews are great because he doesn't really say much, but he gives you that, that whatever answer, the answer that he knows that you're looking for anyway, and kind of just gives you that snarky answer. So I do love his interviews, but it's a shame that we're not going to see him in the playoffs for sure. Speaking of not going to go ahead.
No, I was going to say, yeah, definitely. I love Greg Popovich. I think he's become somewhat Bill Belichickian with his answers. But unlike Belichick, I think Belichick is truly a dink. And I mean, I love that about him. But like Popovich is actually a really cool, nice guy. Yeah. But I think he loves playing the dink, So I do miss. I mean, I thought when Craig Sager got sick, his response, because he was very good friends with Craig Sager, was just extremely heartwarming, and I really love that. Just one more note on the Spurs on why they didn't make the playoffs this year. Aside from not having an all-star, looking into the stats and really diving deep, the big thing is last year when they did make the playoffs, they shot 35% from 3. This year they shot 28% from 3. So when you're taking the same number of shots, but you're missing 7% more of your 3-pointers in a 3-point driven league, you're not going to make the playoffs.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's great points. And like I said, I mean, everybody knows, and I say it all the time, I'm not a huge basketball guy anymore. I don't watch too much, but I do still follow it. I still keep tabs on everything. I will watch the playoffs just because it's sports, and that's what I love to do. But yeah, it was kind of shocking. Speaking of shocking, so we talked before Soup Boss became a part of the show, and I think we talked about this a little bit on your show as well. We were talking about how the NBA was, gearing up the way that they did their restart to try to get the Pelicans into the playoffs. And I think that the Pelicans not getting into the playoffs is absolutely hilarious. But I also think the biggest sign that they probably could have just went straight to the playoffs and did a round robin, kind of like the NHL did, was the Suns. The Suns went 8-0 in the bubble. They went undefeated. They didn't lose a game in the bubble, and they still missed the playoffs. Like, why were they even there? So even if they win all their games, they had no chance at the playoffs. Why did you have them there?
I don't understand that. They did have a chance. I mean, you have to understand that it's very much like, you remember at the end of every NFL season when they're like, well, the Patriots could make the playoffs if the Jets throw one interception and the Bears, jump up and down 3 times after scoring a touchdown. And there's all these little details. Yeah. Well, it's the same thing here. The Suns went in there knowing that if they went 8-0, that wasn't going to be good enough. They still needed help from the other teams. And they got some help from the Pelicans, but the Pelicans didn't hold the 8th seed. The Memphis Grizzlies did. And there were still 4 teams ahead of them going in. So they knew the long shot of it. It's great that they went 8-0, and I think it shows a great glimpse into 2021 of what they're going to be able to do with DeAndre Ayton and with Booker and those guys. And plus, they're going to get a lottery pick now because they missed the playoffs. And just to touch on the New Orleans Pelicans thing, again, I think that the NBA did want the Pelicans in the playoffs, but who didn't want to be in the playoffs? The New Orleans Pelicans, because they played Zion Williamson. He missed 3 games and they only played him like 16 minutes of games when he did play. So they were tanking on purpose to get out of there,
didn't he? Didn't he? He had to leave for a little bit, right?
But he was still there for the first game in the bubble. It's just they didn't play him.
Oh, okay. All right. I did not know that, to be honest with you. I had no clue. So I'm relying on you for all this NBA talk. Look, the Suns going 8-0 in the bubble and still not making the playoffs, to me, suggests that in order for them to make it, they needed to do what they needed to do, which was go 8-0, but they also needed a bunch of help. Why couldn't the NBA have just done what the NHL did, where the NHL did, look, we're going to take our bottom 8 teams, and they're going to play for the play-in. They're going to play a series to do a play-in, and then the other ones are going to play a round robin to determine their seeding. To me, that made more sense than doing what they did and having a team go 8-0, and now they're bounced, and now we don't even get to see this team who's on an unbelievable run, and maybe possibly as an 8 seed could have given LA some trouble.
Well, first of all, they couldn't have. That the team's just too young and inexperienced. And I understand they looked really good for those 8 games. But the reason they didn't do what the NHL did is because they were trying to simulate as best as possible the final 8 games of an NBA season. Now, don't feel bad for the Suns. They went 20-40 or whatever it was before the whole COVID thing happened. So it isn't like they didn't help themselves before the bubble, and that's why they ended up in that situation. The reason you couldn't take more teams like the NHL did is because they went with teams that were 6 games out. Because in both sides, the East and the West, the next team after being 6 games out was like 11 games out, and then that team would have to go not only 8-0, but they'd need the 8th place team to go 0-8 to get in. So I mean, there's just way too much.
Yeah, I think that they a team that you invited to come down and say, hey, look, you're good enough to make the restart because this is where we want it to be, because we want the Pelicans to be down here, and because we want the Pelicans to have a chance to get in, and that's what we're hoping for. We're going to bring you down, even if you go 8-0, you still need other teams to go pretty much 0-8. In order to make the playoff. To me, you kind of wasted their time, and you put them, you put them in a spot where they had zero chance. So I just don't get it. I don't get what the NBA is doing sometimes.
They weren't tied to the Pelicans. The Pelicans had a better record than them going into the bubble,
right.
So they didn't have to invite Phoenix at all. So it isn't like you're like, well, we have to invite Phoenix if we bring in the Pelicans. That's not true. You could just brought the Pelicans and not Phoenix. They were bringing in teams that were within 6 games, and they had an 8-game schedule saying you do have a chance to make it, but you're going to need some help. And like I said, Phoenix understood that going into it. I'm fascinated they went 8-0 just based on how terrible they played before the bubble.
Yep.
I mean, good for them. Like I said, they looked really great, but I don't feel bad for them at all. It's just the way that things were going to play out if we had a full NBA season. Anyways, in fact, they probably would have finished even worse if we had a full NBA season.
Right. All right. So speaking of the New Orleans Pelicans, and we touched on Zion Williamson. And look, Zion Williamson's a beast. I watched him in college. I do watch college. I love college basketball, so I do watch a lot of college basketball. And he was just a beast at Duke. He was unreal. And I'm not sure, because I didn't watch too much of the regular season before COVID, and I didn't watch any of the bubble play until today when I started watching playoff bubble play. Zion Williamson, to me, just seems like I'm hoping that he's not going to be another what's his name there from the Blazers, who always gets hurt.
Greg Oden.
Greg Oden. I just hope that's not going to happen. So I'm going to leave the floor to you, because I know you watch way more basketball than I do. But what we want to do here is I want to grade Zion's rookie season. So let's talk about Zion Williamson here. And how did he do his rookie year, Wayne?
I think he did fantastic. I mean, his true grade would be an incomplete. He only played 24 games. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that we had the 3 months off or whatever it was because of COVID. But during the games that he played, he averaged 22.5 points per game. So he was putting up monster numbers. And if you watch any of those games, like I love watching him play. He hustles. He is not a dog. Like, he is out there hustling both ends of the floor. He gets tired quick because he's a big, heavy guy. And I think the best comp for him, and it's been thrown out there before, so I'm not going to take credit for coming up with it, but Larry Johnson, who is a 6'6" power forward, similar build, similar athleticism to Zion. He's a little bit better rebounder. Zion needs to step up the rebound numbers a little bit, but they both are very good inside scorers. And to give you an idea, Larry Johnson's career average is like 16 points per game. The best he ever averaged was 21.5. So Zion's rookie year, he averaged more than Larry Johnson's best year ever. So I think that things are looking very up for them. I don't think he's injury prone. I think this all started with his foot sliding out and the sneaker blowing out at Duke, and that kind of hurt his knee, and that kind of started this whole snowball effect. But I don't think he's going to be Greg Oden. I think he's going to come back next year. They're probably going to take it easy with him. He'll play 65 games, 60 to 65 games, and I wouldn't expect anything less than maybe 23, 24 points per game from him. He only averaged 6 rebounds a game. So like I said, he needs to get the rebound numbers up. For somebody as athletic as he is, he should be pulling down 8 or 9.
So do you think that Zion Williamson can be a guy that carries a team on his back, or are they still a superstar or two away?
I wouldn't say they're a superstar or two away, and I also wouldn't say, kind of way. I wouldn't say that, he could carry the team on his back either. I mean, Zion Williamson is a phenomenal talent. He's a great, great player, but he's not LeBron James. Right. Guys who can carry teams on their back, like LeBron James, Tim Duncan, Shaquille O'Neal, they are once-in-a-generation type players, and Zion is that in terms of his marketability. He's a once-in-a-generation marketability player. Right. But as far as his playing style, he needs another scorer, slasher, shooter, somebody on the team. And they have them. I mean, they've got JJ Redick there right now. They've got, Brandon Ingram. They've got Lonzo Ball, who I think is a phenomenal talent in his own right. If he can stay healthy, that whole team's riddled with injuries. But that team, if healthy, which now they're getting another lottery pick, but they don't need it. That team as constituted with a healthy Zion and a healthy Lonzo is a 5 seed in the playoffs next year. Okay.
Fair enough. And to me, it'd be great to see, because I would love to see more of Zion Williamson, and for fans like me, and I know it's not just me who doesn't watch regular season NBA, and there's a lot of guys who don't watch regular season hockey, and there's a lot of guys who don't watch regular season baseball, and they just tune in for playoffs. So, for me to see more Zion, they would have to be in the playoffs. But I love the kid. He's always been a great kid, as like to your point with the marketability. Everything I hear about this kid is that he's unbelievable to be around. He's a very, down to earth type of guy, and very marketable. So I'd like to see him win and do great things over there in New Orleans, especially New Orleans. Really, I mean, you start thinking about teams in the NBA and teams that, you can see winning championships. New Orleans Pelicans would probably be the last team that anybody ever says, right?
The Sacramento Kings are right up there.
That's true. Well, Sacramento had a good run for a little while there.
They've got a good young team too. They got Buddy Hield, they got Harrison Barnes. I mean, that's a good young team. De'Aaron Fox, so that's a good young team as well. They're farther away than New Orleans is, because Brandon Ingram is a bona fide superstar in the making. And if he can stay healthy, none of the guys on Sacramento are of Zion's ability. But I will say this: a guy that I love in Sacramento that nobody knows who he is because he's in Sacramento, but Marvin Bagley is phenomenal. Marvin Bagley is a top 5 power forward in the league if he can get a little bit more publicity. Okay. All right.
So let's get into something that I do know a little bit about, and that's my Chicago Bulls. And the Bulls are just they're a train wreck right now. I mean, to be completely honest with you, if dumpster fires were a real thing in the NBA, they would have a picture of the Bulls on them, because they're just so poorly. And to me, Jim Boylen is just the start of what needs to go in Chicago. They need to rearrange that front office. They need to have different people making all the decisions out there. They've done an abysmal job since they weren't expecting the Derrick Rose thing to happen the way that it did, and all the injuries and stuff like that. And they wanted to build around him. And as soon as they lost him and started trading away guys like Joakim Noah and all that, they have done a horrible job of trying to build around him and make guys want to come to Chicago to play basketball. Chicago, it used to be the Mecca. It used to be where everybody wanted to come and play. And now you couldn't get a guy to come here to play for anything. I mean, we had Jimmy Butler for a little while. Jimmy Butler wanted out. And this Bulls team, man, it's tough to watch, because me, I'm a big Bulls fan in the 90s, Jordan, Pippen, all them guys. Like, I loved my Bulls for a long time, and they're just probably the biggest reason why I don't watch basketball anymore is because of how hard this team is to watch.
Well, they have a lot of talent too. We talk about young teams. I mean, this team went with the youth movement, a lot of first round picks. Wendell Carter is a great player out of Duke. I think that Lauri Markkanen had a good year last year. He regressed this season significantly, and you can chalk that up to the head coach who went 22-43 and was 22-60 the year before. So, I mean, he could be responsible for all these players regressing. They bring in a huge contract on Otto Porter Jr., who I thought underperformed, his last contract and didn't deserve what he got, but they gave it to him anyways. They've got one or two directions they can go right now. All right. If they want to get better, they got one or two directions. You can either build around Zach LaVine, which means you're banking on his health because he's had a very unhealthy, huge bank. But you build around him by trading away some of these young pieces that you drafted, trading away some of your future capital, bringing in a couple of veterans, signing a guy from Chicago like Anthony Davis, maybe in the offseason, who hasn't re-upped with the Lakers as far as I know. You bring in a guy like Jabari Parker, right? Who I mean is a nice role player. He's from Chicago, and you bring these guys in, and then you bring in a coach like an Ime Ukoda, if that's how you say his name, from the 76ers. He's their assistant head coach, and he worked under Greg Popovich for 7 years. So this is a guy who has a mentality on how to coach veteran players to the playoffs for 22 straight seasons, and how to get them to perform. So you build around Zach LaVine, who I believe is a bona fide superstar, with that type of coach. Option two is you do what the Celtics did, which is the youth movement, right? You trade away Zach LaVine, you get more first-round picks in, you build around Markkanen and Carter, you trade away Porter, and you bring in a coach like Shaka Smart from Texas, right? A college coach who can now take over a team that has mostly rookies and 2 or 3 year players, and you do what the Celtics did, which is build with the coach and those players right up through for the next 5 years.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. I love Zach LaVine. I loved the Lauri Markkanen pick when they picked him. A lot of people, were down on the Markkanen pick, and I thought the guy was going to be really good. Everything that I heard about him was really good. Everything that I had seen was really good, and he did regress this year. He really did. But you're right though. It could have been a product of Jim Boylan and all of that. This team, whichever direction they need to go, they need to figure it out, and they need to figure it out quick because to your point, you mentioned Anthony Davis. If I'm Anthony Davis, there's no way I'm leaving LA and playing with LeBron James to come to the shit show that Chicago is right now. There's just no way. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. From a business standpoint, from his standpoint, like I don't understand. I wouldn't even think twice.
But the reason it makes sense is because only if the Los Angeles Lakers win a championship this year, because then he gets the championship, he can go to Chicago and start his own legacy. He's still only 26 years old, right? Mm-hmm. So he can go to Chicago, which is a big city. You're not going to lose any marketing deals going to Chicago because basically Chicago, LA, New York, those are big cities. So he's still going to have all the endorsement opportunities. He's going to be able to be the captain of the team, what LeBron is in LA. So even though Davis is probably the better player right now, but it's still LeBron getting all the love. So he can go to Chicago and get all the Chicago love from his hometown and get paid and get all the endorsements and be starting his own legacy with Zach LaVine because he only goes there if LaVine stays.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I guess we'll see. Being a Chicago guy, I would love to see these guys get back to prominence or at least get back to some sort of a formidable team. Like they're just a joke right now. So moving on, so speaking of legacies, we were just talking about Vince Carter came out this week, and I know this is an interesting one for you because for me and for a lot of people out there, it's Michael Jordan 1, and then after that it's debatable, and for you it's Wilt Chamberlain 1, Michael Jordan 2. So I understand where you're coming from, but from what Vince Carter said, he was asked about the GOAT and where the greatest of all time status falls. And he said after Michael Jordan, and this is something that I've said in the past, is that Kobe Bryant is at number 2. So what were your thoughts on that take?
I took it as Vince Carter talking about the best 3 players he played against. I mean, he didn't play against Wilt Chamberlain. He didn't play against Larry Bird or Magic Johnson. You know what I mean? So he's talking about these are the 3 best guys I played against in my entire life from high school right up. These 3 guys are tops. Like I played against all 3 of them. They're all tops. So I understand that. And I understand why he wouldn't include some of the older guys. If he's saying that those are the best ever, I just chalk up to bias. I can't take him seriously for it because I don't know how much of a historian he really is. Right. I would trust Kobe Bryant more because he seems to be a guy who studied the game, who knows the history of the game, more so than Vince Carter, who seems like he's just kind of a guy who's been playing. And so I understand if these are the 3 best guys he played against. I also would disagree with him at LeBron at 3. because I'm the biggest Kobe fan in the world. Kobe Bryant is the angel on the top of my Christmas tree every year, and he has been for the last 10 years. And yet I still have LeBron James as a better player all time than Kobe Bryant. So I think that he's wrong there. I do think it goes Jordan, LeBron, Kobe. I mean, obviously I think it's Wilt, Jordan, but I think between those three, I think it goes Jordan, LeBron, Kobe.
Now, I remember, so when we worked together over in New Hampshire, and then we started playing a little bit of men's league here and there, I would join you, and I'm atrocious at basketball, but I would go out there and run around and try anyway. But I remember we went to the bar and we were watching the LeBron thing, which, to be honest with you, I didn't even remember that we were at the bar for the decision, but until you mentioned it the other day. And then I started thinking, I was like, oh yeah, you're right. I remember wanting him to pick Chicago and all that. And look, LeBron's a great player, but I also remember telling you, and I've said this a lot to other people as well, but I don't even know if LeBron is as good as Kobe when it comes to the debate about the GOATs. And I think for me, it's Jordan 1. For me, it's Kobe 2, because I'm not saying that LeBron isn't an amazing talent, and I'm not saying LeBron isn't an amazing athlete, because he clearly is. He clearly is probably one of the greatest athletes to ever step on the court, and probably a better athlete than Michael Jordan. But when it comes to just strictly basketball and the will to win and the desire to win and the unwillingness to fail, it's to me, it's he's not even close. Like, he's not even in the conversation. And so that's why for me, it's always been, I'm not sure if this guy's even as good as Kobe. And Kobe was Kobe. I mean, everybody wants to be on YouTube and shooting paper into trash cans going Kobe. Like, everybody does that. And LeBron's thing on the internet is flopping. So, like, I just think that there's a different legacy there. So I understand when people have Kobe ahead of LeBron in the greatest of all time debate. Hell, I have him better than LeBron. Not that my basketball take means much, because I talk all the time about how I don't watch much anymore, but I used to watch a lot. And Kobe was, look, the guy was a killer, man. He was just, he was unstoppable. And when he wanted to just go out and shoot 100 times a game, he would put up 81. That's just the type of guy he was. And Kobe, to me, is just, if I am starting a team and I have the second draft pick and you've already taken Michael Jordan, or in your case, Wilt Chamberlain, I'm going Kobe. If Jordan's off the board, I'm going Kobe.
Well, I think that's a mistake, because I think that Kobe Bryant needs a certain type of player around him. Kobe Bryant is a phenomenal scorer. And like you said, he's a killer. He is a tenacious player. And I love that. And I always thought like a dream scenario would be Kobe and KG, because KG's got that killer kind of dog in him, And the two of those guys together would have been sick,
Yeah.
But at the same time, I understand why people don't put LeBron ahead of Kobe, and that's basically on likability. You have to remember that LeBron James was trending prior to the decision as being the most popular player, even ahead of Michael Jordan, of all time in the NBA. And that decision just totally derailed that whole popularity thing. And as soon as that got derailed, then his legacy got derailed. Not because of anything. I believe it's fine that he went and started his own team. That's fine. But I think that it's just people stopped liking him, and so they stopped ranking him as high. But the reality is, yes, Kobe's a killer. Kobe's an assassin. I'll give you that. Name one thing he does better than LeBron James. There's nothing on the basketball court he does better. He is a killer, but he doesn't have the skill. He doesn't score as well. He doesn't rebound as well. He doesn't pass as well. He doesn't defend every position as well. He doesn't see the floor the same way that LeBron saw it. He's got a great IQ. I'll give you, some of you say IQ. I mean, I give him that, but on the basketball court, LeBron James does everything better than Kobe Bryant. So for me to say, yeah, he does everything better, but Kobe's still better. Why? I like him more. I mean, that's really what it comes down to.
See, my argument is just always the LeBron's okay with failing. And we can say all we want that, no, he's not, or he just handles it differently but he's okay with failing. He's okay with, at the end of the day, if they don't win a championship, he still goes home. And he said it before. He goes home to his house, to his mansion, and his beautiful wife and all that stuff. Like, he can accept losing. And for me, that's just not a guy that I want leading my team. So for me, having him on the greatest of all time list ahead of guys like Jordan and ahead of guys like Kobe and Wilt, who would not accept that and would not accept failure or losing, I have a hard time doing it, regardless of his, ability to. Yeah, like I said, LeBron's a great athlete. He could play all five positions, and he would be an all-star, all NBA team at all five. He's that good, but I just don't think he wants to win enough. That's my argument against LeBron.
And I would say that I understand what you're saying because that's what he says. And I do believe that he can disassociate his personal life from basketball. And maybe there's something to respecting Kobe and Jordan because they couldn't, like it ate at them when they weren't playing. I don't think LeBron James plays the game of basketball like he's okay with losing. In fact, I think that series that he lost to Golden State back in, what was it, 16 or 15, whatever it was, yeah. I thought that finals performance and a losing performance was better than anything Michael Jordan did in any of his final wins because it was just nothing but pure heart poured all over the floor trying to win the series. But then, okay, you lose. Now you're right. He can go home. He can go on the banana boat, right, and have fun with his buddies. And that's fine. I don't have a problem with that because he's just saying, it's like you or me saying, listen, I care about my job. I want to be the best at my job. And when I'm in the office, I want to kill everybody in the office at my job. But as soon as I get home, I'm not even thinking about the office, So does that mean that I'm not as good as somebody who goes home and does think about it? I don't think so. I think it's just what you do within those walls. And LeBron plays like winning means everything to him. But the fact that if he doesn't win, he can go home and it's not going to eat away at him, I have no problem with that.
All right. Our freaking chat is blowing up. I've got, let's see here. We have Mike and Mike. Man Hour says Kobe isn't even top 5. Do you have Kobe in your top 5?
He's 5th.
Okay.
So I go Wilt, Jordan, LeBron, Kareem, Kobe, and that's interchangeable, by the way. So depending, Mike and Mike like to say Kobe's not in the top 5. They're just saying that to start a fight. They don't even know who they have in their top 5. The reality is that if you were to switch out Kobe for Duncan, I'd be okay with that. There's certain guys you could switch him out for, and I wouldn't put up too much of a fight. So because he is 5th, but to say he's not top 5, I think that they're just trying to start a fight.
They also say LBJ is the GOAT. And then they put up LBJ, MJ, Wilt, and Bird. Wow.
Yes, that's what I'm talking. Bird in the top 5. Get out of here.
No. Yeah. Chad joining us. Soup Boss says a lot of people hated Kobe when he played. His personality and persona was better after he retired. You think that's true?
I think people hated him when he played because he was kind of a dick. And unlike Michael Jordan did a really good job. There wasn't no social media around and there wasn't as much coverage. And so Michael Jordan was able to be a dick on the court, and anybody who ever played against him will tell you that he was. So was Kobe. Again, they were basically twins, but the difference was Kobe was covered in a different manner. So when people saw him being a dick, like, oh, what a dick. He didn't get the Jordan love, but they were both comparable. So I understand why people didn't like Kobe when he played. I know when the whole rape allegation came out, a lot of people really were happy. They wanted to see him go to jail because people are sick-minded. But at the end of the day, I understand why people didn't like him when he did play. As far as him being, more popular, more likable after he retired, I think that's just because he wasn't killing your team anymore.
Look, Mike and Mike Manor said Kobe needed Shaq to be like, come on, stop. And this is why his wife, not hot, just saying. This is the type of stuff that you get from Mike and Mike Man on Man Hour. This is the type of stuff that you get. And so, look, guys, come on, Buckheister. You're better than that. Come on. Jeez, crow. Subas says Wilt dealt with a lot of losing. He did deal with a lot of losing, but he didn't accept it. He just he didn't have anybody around him when he was losing.
I think that's debatable depending on who you talk to, that some people will say that he cared more about his statistics than he did about winning. And so there were times like he wouldn't play hard on defense because, he didn't foul out in one single game of his 13-year career. And so it got to a certain point where, if he got 4 fouls, he would start not trying as hard on defense because, he didn't want to foul out. He didn't want to end that streak, so depending on who you talk to. But I know when you talk to Bill Russell, because I've seen interviews, Bill Russell said that Wilt Chamberlain, there's nobody better, not even MJ.
Hey, look, I'm a big, and I know you are with the tree topper and everything. So Kobe in your heart is probably number 1, I would assume. But
it's my favorite.
Yeah, I loved watching Kobe, man. It was sad. Like, I ain't gonna lie. I mean, I shed tears when when I heard about the news of the helicopter and all that. Kobe was just Jordan was hated too, but Jordan wasn't hated by his teammates, and I've heard a lot that Kobe was. So I don't know. It's hard for me to ever put LeBron above Kobe or MJ, but that's just me. And like I said, my takes don't mean much. Speaking of my takes not meaning much when it comes to basketball, let's get we're gonna start doing power rankings here on the RTF Sports Network. And I do know that Wayne G is going to be coming out with the NBA power rankings. So Wayne, why don't you go ahead and give us the top 5 power rankings for the NBA?
Well, right off the bat, we're going to stir some controversy. And keep in mind that I'm a Lakers fan. And like I said, I have Kobe on the top of the tree. I bleed purple and gold above any other sport. I just love the Lakers. And this kills me. My number 1 in the power rankings is the Boston Celtics. I just think that what Brad Stevens has done with that team, they keep looking better and better and better. And Jason Tatum's looking more and more like a superstar. I do think that of all the coaches in the playoffs, he is the best coach in the playoffs right now. You can make an argument for Spoelstra, but it wouldn't be a very good one. I think that Popovich is the only coach in the NBA better than Stevens. So he is the best coach in the NBA right now, and he's coaching an extremely hot team. Number 2, I have the Lakers. You got to consider them with LeBron James and Anthony Davis and the shooters and the defenders around them. They're just one of the top teams. You could put them at number 1. I didn't, just because I don't love Vogel as much as I like Brad Stevens. Raptors at number 3. They've been playing insane. Isn't it crazy that, Kawhi Leonard leaves that team and they're still vying for a championship? The Milwaukee Bucks at number 4. Again, you could put them at 3 if you want. You could put them at 2 if you want. I mean, Giannis is playing great. He's impossible to guard. And then, of course, number 5, this one I have the Mavericks. I think Rick Carlisle is a great coach. He's right up there in that Stevens category. You bring in Luka playing out of his mind, Kristaps Porzingis, the unicorn, Tim Hardaway Jr., shooters like Trey Burke and, Seth Curry. This team is really, really good. And the Mavericks, I think, are going to make some noise in the playoffs.
All right. There you go. To be honest with you, I could give you my top 5, but it probably doesn't matter because I really don't watch anyway. So Chad says, there goes my co-host with the awesome NBA takes. I do. He did like your pick, though. Go Celts, go green.
That makes me want to puke, but they're the top team, I think.
He wants to know who's doing the NHL power ranking. I don't know. Have we found anybody do the NHL power rankings? If not,
Sully.
Oh, okay. So Sully's going to do them? All right, perfect. So yep. Sully, also from Infinity Sports. Look, Wayne G and Sully do an amazing job on Infinity Sports. I've said it before. I'll say it again. Them 2 guys, they do a great show. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to cut. Who?
Jesse B, who chimed in.
Oh, okay. I don't know. I don't know why I can never remember that guy. At any rate, we are going to go ahead and take another break. And then when we get back from break, we are going to have our top 5. I won't call it Infinity 5 out of respect. We are going to have our top 5 baseball movies of all time. Stay with us. We will be right back with you.
Yeah, rap, let's take a walk. You and I can have a little talk. Word is you ain't doing well. Well, I'll be down to make 2 of us. I make plans for the 2 of us. Up a minivan, I want a tour bus. Oh, you don't want that? You do with us? I'm about to kill us both. Bet that blow us up. Blow us out. I'm screwing up like ain't that. I'm rolling flux to the wrong people like a dog evil. Think I harbor demons. That's true as fuck. Who joking that? Who joking tracks? Get killed by the shit that I concentrate. Y'all don't even know half the shit I roll the tracks. The time I tell the shit needs some open that. Now these bricks when I ain't roll them back. And these chicks when I ain't roll them back. But please forgive me. I've been busy taking roll and walk down railroad tracks. Now I lost my train of thought. What can aim to see in this trailer park? No, ain't
What's going on, Triple Shot Sports family? This is Brandon Combs, host of the best podcast on the planet. That's the Triple Shot Sports Podcast. Be sure to join myself and Soup Boss Chad Louder live for 2 hours. Yes, I said 2 hours every Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern and 7 p.m. Central on the RTF Sports Network Facebook page and YouTube. And if you miss any part of the show, you can hear us every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on your drive home at 5 p.m. Eastern on rtfsportsnetwork.com. All right, welcome back. Hope you guys enjoyed that little break, a little bit more Mises there. If you guys, anybody out there who knows any local or small-time guys that are trying to get their music heard, their name heard, look, I know the music industry is really cutthroat and you know, just like the sports industry is. But, you know, I just seriously, I'm not trying to look for anything for free or anybody, you know, trying to get over on anybody. If you've got some stuff that wants to be heard, that needs to be heard, send it to me. I'll play it on our breaks. Absolutely, positively, we will get your name out there. So moving on, we're going to get to our top 5 baseball movies of all time. And Wayne, this was a tough list for me because I'll tell you right now, I've got some stuff that I thought was going to surely be on the list, and then once I started doing my list, some stuff didn't make it that I really thought would. There are some honorable mentions that I have. I've got The Natural did not make my top 5. Major League did not make my top 5. Bull Durham did not make my top 5, and then, you know, obviously the ones that I loved as kids, like the Bad News Bears and Rookie of the Year, which before 2016 I thought was going to be the only way I ever saw the Cubs win a damn World Series. So those movies like that did not make my top 5. How about you? Who are some surprises that are not on your list?
Sure. Well, I think the biggest surprise for anybody who knows me is that Major League is not my top 5 because it is my number 1 all-time favorite movie. And as much as I'm a sports buff, I'm equally a movie buff. And so I am very good at separating, like, these movies are great, but I like these ones, and making 2 separate lists. So in this case, we're doing the top 5, what we think are the 5 best baseball movies ever made. Major League doesn't fall into that. So that's the biggest surprise, probably because everyone who knows me knows that has been my favorite movie for 30 years, and it will be for the next 30 years, but it's not one of the top 5 baseball movies ever made.
Yeah, no, I agree. It you know, didn't make mine either, and I love the movie. I'll watch it every time it's on. I still laugh hysterically every time I watch it. But yeah, it definitely was on top 5 for me. I think my number 5 people are going to have a problem with, just because it's not a lot of people when I say what, you know, that I love this and it was a great baseball movie, a lot of people come at me with, that's not a baseball movie, that's a chick flick. But my number 5 baseball movie of all time, is For Love of the Game with Kevin Costner. Look, they just do a phenomenal job in that movie of portraying sometimes that we forget that athletes are actually still human beings. They still have lives. They still have things going on in their head. And even though they're on the field and they're performing, sometimes they've got stuff going on that they're thinking about and they're not even thinking about the game. And For Love of the Game, for those of you who haven't seen it, it's a Kevin Costner movie. He's pitching a perfect game, and at the same time, he's reliving, you know, all the different things that he could have done differently or wanted to do differently with a woman that he's fallen in love with. And they just do a phenomenal job. Kevin Costner he's on this list again, obviously. But Kevin Costner is just an amazing actor. He loves baseball himself. So I think maybe that's why he does such good, you know, baseball movies. But yeah, for me, it's For Love of the Game at number 5. You have any issue with that there, Wayne?
No, actually, it's probably my number 6 because I actually have For Love of the Game on my list here, and I have it crossed off in place of a different number 5, so it almost made the list. It is a phenomenal movie, and his love interest in the movie was played by John Travolta's late wife, Kelly Preston, rest in peace. She just passed last week. But very pretty. I remember seeing her in Twins. But yeah, the thing I liked about For Love of the Game, not only is the way the story is told and yes, the different dynamics they have in it, but I love Costner's character in that he is such a down-to-earth. He kind of understands life more than he understands baseball. I think that sometimes And I think of the scene where he meets her. She almost stands him up for dinner, and she goes, Billy Chapel, and he goes, well, why do you use both of my names when you talk about me? And she goes, "'Cause just so I know what I'm up against. You know, little kids buy cards with your face on it." He goes, "They buy those for the gum, Gene." You know? And you know, it's just, there's so many great lines in there about how he understands that baseball is not life. Just what you hate about LeBron James, that like this is not his life. You know, he does it and it's important to him, but life is so much bigger. And that's what the whole movie's about. And there's so many great scenes in that movie. If you haven't seen it, I recommend it specifically because my all-time favorite singer, Garth Brooks, sings a song in that movie called "It Don't Matter to the Sun." And it comes on when he sees his basically stepdaughter at USC when she's coming out of the college. So keep an eye on that, or ear out on for that.
Yeah, absolutely. It really was a good movie. I definitely recommend it. Wayne, what do you have for 5?
My number 5 is Field of Dreams. Again, Costner. You can't go wrong, right? If you build it, he will come. Obviously, I first saw this movie. I was probably 14 or 15 years old. I didn't see it right when it first came out. And I remember this is a movie that, you know, one of those first movies that you really cry at because you're a guy. You know, it's not really sad, I guess. Like, it's not like somebody dies. You know, it's just like, as a human being and as a man, if you're a man and you don't cry at Field of Dreams, you're not really a man. So turn in your man card, because that, when he says, "Hey dad, do you want to have a catch?" that should bring every man to tears. And the story is just so great. And with James Earl Jones playing Terrence Mann is phenomenal. Ray Liotta as Joe Jackson is so great. You know, I mean, again, great lines when Costner's pitching to him and he says, "I want to see if you can hit my curveball." And he throws a curveball and Joe Jackson rips it back at him. He goes, yeah, you can hit the curve.
I hate to do it. Me and Soup do this all the time with our list. It seems like he has one ranked right ahead of mine, but my number 4 is Field of Dreams. Look, I absolutely love the movie. James Earl Jones was absolutely phenomenal in that movie, and a lot of his damn speeches, man, they hit me right in the heart. And when he starts talking about baseball and how, you know, one thing has stood the test of time, and that's baseball. You know, through everything that you do, everything that you go, baseball has always been there for you. And that always hits me, man, because that's how I feel about the game. I'm a baseball guy. I absolutely love the game. And I think this movie does a great job of capturing what it's like for somebody who really, really, really loves the game of baseball. And they do a great job. I mean, obviously, you know, people aren't really going to start coming out of cornfields and playing. And I'm really upset that COVID took that from us this year, because there was the White Sox and the Yankees were actually going to play a game there this year at the Field of Dreams. So it disappoints me that they are not doing that this year, because I was really looking forward to that.
Yeah, James Earl Jones, like you said, you know, you said your finger was a gun.
Yeah.
It's such a good movie.
Dude, that guy.
So speaking of James Earl Jones and baseball movies, my number 4 is The Sandlot. You know, I think that this is just a great movie that kids from all ages, and when I say kids, I mean 50-year-olds. If you enjoy the game of baseball, how could you not like The Sandlot? You know, kids getting together, playing baseball all summer long. You know, it's nostalgic because it goes back to the 60s or 70s, whatever it is. And in order to play under the lights, they play under the fireworks. Benny the Jet Rodriguez, classic character. You know, the PF Flyers, the Beast, and then of course, you know, like I said, Mr. Myrtle. You know, I mean. When they say, you know, oh, you know, that's signed by George or by Babe Ruth. It's like, George signed this. Yeah, it's just so great. And he gets out the murderer's row ball, and it's just so good. I mean, I could watch that entire movie probably for an entire week or two straight and not get sick of it. Yeah.
So at number 3, I have Moneyball. Moneyball, it a phenomenal movie. I mean, if you want to know what it's like in the front office of baseball, and what Billy Beane did with that Oakland A's team, and the way that they run their, you know, their signings and their draft pick, it is just unbelievable. And just I mean, they have so many celebrities in this movie. You got who we have in I got Philip Seymour Hoffman. You have Jonah Hill, Jonah Hill was brilliant in that movie.
Kills it.
Man, he was unreal. And then you have you know, Chris Pratt obviously is in there, and Brad Pitt, you know, is obviously Billy Beane. But look, that that movie to me is kind of like, for draft day for football. It really brings you inside of what it's like inside a front office. Most of us have our ideas as to what these guys do, or what phone calls are like, or anything like that. But this really gives you some inside information of the front office of an MLB team, and I thought that was an absolutely amazing movie. Well, who do you have at number 3, Wayne?
Yeah, well, I'll say I love Moneyball as well, and like I said, Jonah Hill, phenomenal. And to me, obviously, my favorite scene is when he's trying to get the money to buy Rincon, and they're calling the owner, right? And he's like, he goes, Billy needs 250,000 for Rincon, please. No, I added the please. And he says, and so he's like, no. And he goes, all right, tell him I'll buy him myself, but when I sell him next year for twice as much, I'm keeping the money. And so he tells him, and then he's like, yes, they got it, So that's such a great scene.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, my number 3 is one that you left off the list. You say it's Bull Durham. Obviously, Bull Durham. When you think of like minor league baseball, who doesn't love minor league baseball and the show that they put out there? It's a big family event, and the lifetime minor leaguer who's just so knowledgeable. And Kevin Costner plays that so well, like the guy who just understands life. And while he's trying to teach Nuke, who has no clue about life, Tim Robbins was phenomenal as Nuke Lelouch. Susan Sarandon, back when she was a smoke show, she's so hot in that.
Yeah.
I don't know, the whole movie in general, and just how life is like baseball. She says it right at the very beginning that she goes to the church of baseball. That's her church. And that whole movie just kind of, reiterates that point after point after point. And to the point that, Kevin Costner has so many great comebacks for her because she's an educated woman. I think she teaches, at the university, and everything she says, he has a witty comeback for it. And it's so fantastic.
Yeah, that's it. The Church of Baseball one is one I use all the time because people start getting into religious talk or something like that with me. I'm not a religious person, so a lot of people will be like, "Oh, who do you pray to?" "Oh, I pray to the baseball gods." That's what and man, they get so mad, so angry, and it usually sparks a long argument. But no, Bull Durham was a great movie. Look, again, another Kevin Costner flick. Like, the guy has done some really, really good baseball movies. I don't have that one on here, but it definitely, like, I have no problem with anybody who does have it in the top 5. That's for sure. Who do you have at number 2?
Number 2, I am going to go with another one that you missed, The Natural. Obviously, Roy Hobbs, it starts off the movie as the pitcher. He strikes out the whammer, which is really the Babe Ruth, right? Strikes him out in 3 straight pitches. Robert Duvall is so good in that movie. Kim Basinger, Wilford Brimley is the manager, diabetes, he keeps talking about how he should have been a farmer, which is hilarious every time he says it. My favorite line, I think, though, is when Bump, who is played by Mark Madsen, Bump actually misses a fly ball, and he's like, hey, the sun got in my eyes. And it's just like a cloudy overhead day. He looks up, he goes, yeah, blinding. But then, he tells Roy, he's like, all right, Roy, batting practice tomorrow, I'll be there. He's like, I always am. And he's hitting these bombs like out of the stadium pretty much. And this turns into this. I think if you were to do a Major League Baseball draft of fictional players, number 1 is Steve Nebraska from The Scout, because he hits bombs and he throws 108 miles per hour. Right. But number 2 is going to be Roy Hobbs. I mean, just the guy is just a phenomenal hitter. Yeah.
No, look, I mean, I might take the Hambino at number 1, but I mean, you mentioned the Sandlot earlier. They had some good Benny the Jet Rodriguez. So there are definitely some great. That would be a good one, man. Do a baseball movie draft. That would be to draft the players from baseball movies. That'd be interesting. Where'd Billy Chapman? Would you take him in the first round?
Billy Chappell as the first pitcher. So I did a blog on the RTF page. You guys can check it out, where actually I pick a lineup based on fictional movie characters, and I actually make baseball cards to match the player. So my starting pitcher was Steve Nebraska, because like I said, he throws 108, 110 miles per hour. So you gotta
it's a no-brainer. Or the kid from Rookie of the Year, didn't he hit like 132 on the radar or something like that?
No, he was throwing in the 90s. But he was like 11, so that's why it was cool.
Yeah. That's true. All right. So at number 2, I have probably the most underrated baseball movie of all time, and that's 8 Men Out. 8 Men Out was a great movie. You had a lot of, your supporting actors, your great supporting actors who were all in this movie. You had John Sayles, John Cusack, David Strathairn, you had Charlie Sheen, Christopher Lloyd, Clifton James, Michael Rooker, and the list just keeps going on and on and on of guys who played in this movie. But they did an amazing job of detailing the 1918 Black Sox scandal, and I mean, it was so well done, such a good movie. They really let you into, they kind of there's always different perspectives on what Shoeless Joe Jackson did or didn't do, and this movie really portrays Shoeless Joe Jackson to be innocent of all the things that they were ultimately charged with and kicked out of baseball for, but it was such a good movie, so well done. And I think that they really did baseball a whole lot of justice by going through all the events and letting people who, weren't alive at that time or just were interested in the story of the Black Sox scandal, especially nowadays. I mean, everybody with the Houston Astros or with, any sort of cheating going on in baseball, the PED, era, like, I really feel like they gave you a great glimpse into something that is seen as a black mark on the game. And it was just really well done. The actors that they had in there did a great job. And so I have 8 Men Out as my number 2.
8 Men Out's a fantastic movie. I love it. And I mentioned it before we came on the air that is a great movie. And that the only reason I didn't include it is because I have a hard time with real life stories kind of being put out there as movies because they're building off of something that actually happened. But that said, D.B. Sweeney played Joe Jackson in that movie, and he's great. If you know him from The Cutting Edge and Heaven as a Playground, he's a very good actor. You say that it shows him being innocent of all that stuff, but Joe Jackson did take their money. He just hit 330 and hit the only home run of the series, but he did take their money. He did know about it. If anything, Buck Weaver, played by John Cusack, did nothing. He didn't take any money. He didn't try to throw the game. He was trying to win, but he knew about it and he didn't tell anyone. That's why he got the lifetime ban. So I really thought it was a kind of written from the player's perspective also of seeing like, why would you ever take money to throw the series? And they kind of show like, well, because these guys weren't getting paid anything and the owner was making a ton of money and all they wanted was like little bonuses and the owner wouldn't give them bonuses. And it was just, you understand that Charles Comiskey is one of the worst owners of all time, Yeah. So I totally think that's a great movie. Neither of us have 42. Sorry, I don't have 42.
If neither of you have 42 on your list, I'm fucking lighting this show up on Tuesday. Well, Soup Boss, not only did it not make my list, but it didn't even make my honorable mentions. I liked the movie. 42 was a great movie, but at no point in time did I even think about it as being a top 5 baseball movie of all time. Great movie. Did an awesome job of portraying Jackie Robinson, did a great job of letting you really know of the things that he had to endure being the first African-American ball player. And they really did do a good job at it. It was a great movie. Anybody who hasn't seen it, I definitely recommend 42. But 42 is not on my list. And I know from talking to you before the show, Wayne, it's not on your list either.
It is not. And I will tell people who like the movie 42, you should check out the movie called Soul of the Game, where Blair Underwood plays Jackie Robinson and Delroy Lindo plays Satchel Paige. Bubba from Forrest Gump plays Josh Gibson. And it's about the Negro Leagues. And it's a better movie than 42. I promise you. And that's not to take a knock at 42, which was really well done. And in terms of like camera angles and set design and stuff like that, is a much better movie. But Soul of the Game, in terms of entertainment value, much better movie about Jackie Robinson.
Soup Boss here calls us a name. If you're watching live, you can see it. If you are listening to this as we re-air it on the RTF Sports Network, I am just going to give you 2 letters, and it is MF. So
it's a word that describes very cool porn on X Hamster.
Oh my God! All right, well that took an unexpected turn. All right,
hey,
so
Corey Chase, baby.
who do you? Oh my God! Oh man! All right, so who do you have at number 1?
Number 1, and this is going to go right smack dab in the face of what I just said. My number 1 is A League of Their Own. and I know it's based on a true story, but the performances in here from Tom Hanks as Jimmy Dugan, and again, so many players. The guy who played Eddie Seacott in Eight Men Out is the chocolate guy. He's the one that gets the league started. Gina Davis, Rosie O'Donnell when she was still funny, Madonna when she still looked good. It's a really good cast. But it's just such a great story, and the story about how it went on during World War II and what these girls did and their experiences playing professional baseball. John Lovitz as the scout is probably my favorite character in the entire movie. He's phenomenal. Like when he first is introduced to them and they're milking cows in the barn, and he goes, "Doesn't that hurt them?" And they go, "No." It bruised the hell out of me. So it's he's such a great character. But no, that whole movie from start to finish, there's not a single moment of the movie, even the part where the girl's husband dies. None of it is bad to me. It's so good. And Tom Hanks, that's why he's so brilliant, is everything he touches is gold. And so I have A League of Their Own, which I believe actually is the best baseball movie ever made, is A League of Their Own.
League of Their Own was really good. There's no crying in baseball is something that you hear said. Even kids now will say it in Little League. So it definitely was a great movie. Definitely, it wasn't in my top 5. Michelle, my girlfriend, she says it is a great pick for number 1, Wayne. And Soup Boss lights you up and says, "You said you don't like movies from real events. You damn liar!" Bullshit.
Well, I preface by saying that.
With that said, that is the best baseball movie ever, he says.
Thank you, Chad.
And Brandon, my son's out here. Apparently, you tuned into the show late, Junior, because he did have The Sandlot on his list. He had it at number 4. And my number 1 baseball movie of all time is The Sandlot. Look, The Sandlot is just an amazing baseball movie. It does a great job of capturing the purity of baseball, and where we all grow a love for the game is when we are children. That on The Sandlot, picking teams, throwing the bat up in the air. I remember, having to catch the bat and then you put your hands on top till you get to the top of you ever do that where you get to the knob of the bat and whoever's hand goes on top, they get to bat first or pitch first. And there's just so many different things that The Sandlot brings to you, comedy being one of them. I mean, when he tells that kid he plays ball like a girl, the look on that kid's face, I crack up every time. And it's still a great, I use it as a meme all the time. People talk shit. I use that one as a meme. I use a lot of "You're killing me, Smalls" is one of the things I say all the time, especially to my kids. I always, "You're killing me, Smalls." That movie was absolutely amazing, and it does a great job, like I said, of capturing the purity of the game and what we grow up, how we fall in love with the game, with our friends, playing in the sandlots or in the alleys or in our backyards or wherever we're playing. And then, all the stuff that we do that our parents don't know about, when they sneak the tobacco and they go on the roller coaster, or, they do it's all stuff that we do as kids. And I love that movie. I'll watch The Sandlot anytime, anywhere. Anybody who says, "Hey, let's watch The Sandlot," I'm in. So
fantastic soundtrack as well too. I mean, the soundtrack, so because it's all those 50 songs, and you have 2 songs in that movie by the Drifters, which I'm gonna tell you this right now. I had this debate with somebody. I said, who's better, Benny King and the Drifters or Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons? And most people will say Frankie Valli because they had more, hits that you think of,
right?
But Benny King and the Drifters were by far better. And in that movie, you have this magic moment when he kisses Wendy Peppercorn, and then you got There Goes My Baby
scene, man.
Yeah. There Goes My Baby, which is where Wendy Peppercorn's walking down the street, and just so good. Yeah, the scene with her is fantastic. And I think you talk about things that you say, like "You're killing me, Smalls." My wife says that a lot.
Yeah.
What I say to my daughter a lot is when she's like, "How long do I have to do this for?"
Forever. Yes. And then the Wendy, you gotta. I mean, when you first watched The Sandlot, you have to admit that when he did that, when he went in the pool, you really thought something serious was happening. And then when he opens his eyes, you're like, "This kid's a freaking genius." Tell me you weren't thinking about going to the pool and doing this, or going to the beach and doing this, and hoping that a hot lifeguard came to pick you up.
When I was a kid growing up, none of the lifeguards looked like Wendy Peppercorn.
Soup Boss wants to know if there's a 50s music debate happening.
He was like 73 when that stuff came out.
Yeah, that's. Oh no. Oh, he's definitely gonna have something to say about that on Tuesday. I guarantee you. It's a movie that both kids and adults can get emotionally connected with. You're right. It's something that I watched it with my kids. I know my girl, her nephews, they love that movie and they watch it all the time. So yeah, that's why for me it's because The Sandlot is one of those movies that generation after generation after generation, you can still get the kids to watch it and they'll love it because no matter what, it's still going to be a great movie. Whereas like all the other ones, like Eight Men Out, Field of Dreams, if you really love baseball, then you'll like those movies. But The Sandlot, even if you don't know what baseball is as a kid, you'll still enjoy this movie. It'll still make you laugh. It'll still be funny. So I Soup Boss. Oh man. All right. So we're gonna get to another quick break, and then we will come back with Way or No Way. So hang out with us for a little bit. Things are getting heated between Wayne, the guest co-host, and Soup Boss. So you guys are killing me here. Yeah. 12. I mean, you're not wrong. I mean, 12 is more than 9. It's you're not wrong.
That's just a fact.
Yeah. I mean, it's you learn that early on in math class. So, all right, we'll be right back, guys.
Something you don't know about. Life trying to make change. But the trolls trying to change me back to the old me. This in high school, you don't know me. No, all you do is troll me. Got so. Know about things, so I know a whole lot. I fight them in my sleep all the time, speaking time, wake me up at 3 o'clock. So what's that tell you? Think it means that I'm going to hell? Do hell no, it means I'm a threat to them. So I suggest that you listen real close to what I tell you. Cause I ain't gonna be here long, but you can always hear a song. On myself while I try still when I write this. Heat strength to hold on. I'm struggling for so long. I don't even know what peace feel like. My dreams die, this is real life. Tears in my eyes, looking at the ceiling like.
All right, guys. So that is Mises with "Do You See Me?" That is another one of his that he just does a great job with. He is talking about depression and people that really don't have anybody to talk to. And I know I've got some friends that have struggled with it, whether it's PTSD or depression. Look, if you need somebody to talk to or you need somebody to reach out to, definitely there's always somebody out there. Hell, if you need to reach out to me, reach out and we can talk. But just again, Mises is one of those guys who has a message that needs to be heard, and he's got all sorts of songs with all sorts of meanings. So check out that one. Check out Free Pression, and check out Our Father has a great message, especially with everything that's going on in the world today. So definitely check it out. My girlfriend texted me during the break, and she wants to know what's going on with 12 is greater than 9.
We'll get to it. We'll talk about it at the end of Way or No Way.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of Way or No Way. So you guys know the game. This is Way or No Way, And you know how it's played. We will give you an answer, whether it's way or no way.
No way. Yes way.
Or in Wayne's estimation, kind of way.
You'll be happy to know I don't have any kind of ways in this list.
Oh, that is an amazing thought. So our first way or no way is Brett Favre comes out and says that he thinks that after this season, Aaron Rodgers should go sign with the Chicago Bears and rub it in Green Bay's face like he did with the Minnesota Vikings. And I got to tell you, even though Soup Boss doesn't have his top 10 quarterbacks, and even though I've spent his entire career loathing the man, if he was my quarterback, especially with the options we have now, that would be amazing. So for me, it is definitely a way. Aaron Rodgers should absolutely come to the Bears. If Aaron Rodgers is the Bears quarterback this year, they are the number 1 seed in the NFC. They are going to the Super Bowl, and they are winning the Super Bowl. They are a top 2-3 team with Aaron Rodgers at quarterback, and to throw it at Green Bay would be absolutely amazing. I know I've got some friends that are watching this that are Green Bay fans. Brad, if you're watching this, I'm sorry, buddy, and I know you're probably vomiting in a bucket, but Aaron Rodgers should absolutely come to Chicago. What do you say, Win?
I say no way. In fact, I think if you're going to be like Brett Favre, why don't you be like Brett Favre and make the rookie sit for 3 years before he ever sees the field? And Aaron Rodgers knows what that's like because he had to sit for 3 years behind Brett Favre, who they thought was out of town, and just stuck around and stuck around and stuck around. After they drafted this kid in the first round to be his replacement, he wouldn't let him get on the field. Eventually, it happened, and I think all that time was great for Aaron Rodgers. And if there's anybody that needs it, it's Jordan Love. The guy set an NCAA record last year for most interceptions in a season with 21. He is not ready to see the NFL. He will not be ready next year or the year after that. So if I were Green Bay, I would ride Aaron Rodgers as long as he will allow you, as long as he's under contract, because he will leave and go somewhere else. I don't know if it'll be an NFC North team, but he is going to leave and go somewhere else at the end of his contract. But as long as he's under contract, soak it up, take as much as you can, get to as many of those division wins as you can. But that's how I say no way. I say, make Jordan Love wait on the bench for 3 years. That's how you should be like Brett Favre.
Yeah, the difference between Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers when it comes to that is you could learn from Brett Favre. Brett Favre was the type of guy that could teach you. He didn't want to. He didn't want to train somebody to take over his spot, but he was somebody that could teach you. I don't think Aaron Rodgers is that guy. Aaron Rodgers is not an approachable human being. His own family doesn't even like inviting him to family events. So I don't think that it's the same scenario as it was with Brett and Aaron as it will be with Aaron and Jordan. I think Aaron still feels like he's got probably another 5 or 6 years left in the tank. And, it's not out of the realm of possibility. I mean, look at Tom Brady. So not saying that Aaron Rodgers is on that level, but you could definitely play well into your 40s and be a successful quarterback in the league. So I just don't know that Green Bay wants to deal with him. I think the draft of Jordan Love really means that Green Bay's ready to move on from Aaron, and it wouldn't surprise me to see him go. I don't think he's going to come to the Bears. I don't think that just because the Bears never have had a quarterback of that caliber, and they just don't seem to ever want a quarterback of that caliber, a la picking up Nick Foles this offseason as opposed to everybody else that was available. So I have a hard time seeing him come to Chicago, but I don't see him in Green Bay much past this season.
Yeah, I think he is. I think that he only had 6 interceptions last year or whatever it was. He never throws double-digit interceptions. He's a very accurate, very smart quarterback. I understand what you're saying is that he doesn't want to be the mentor, but neither did Tom Brady to Jimmy Garoppolo, and yet Garoppolo was still able to soak up things because just being in the same meeting rooms as that guy, even if he doesn't want to help you, listen to his answers to the coach's questions. Listen to him describe the breakdown when the coach asked him to describe the breakdown. You can still soak up being around Aaron Rodgers, and he is a very, very good cerebral quarterback that you can soak up stuff without his help. I do agree with you that he has no interest in helping because unlike Brett Favre, I think Brett Favre would be like, if you're like, hey, Brett, can you help me? He'd say, No, and he'd just take a couple of Vicodin and a couple of 6-packs and he'd be fine. But like Aaron Rodgers, on the other hand, I think Aaron Rodgers is legitimately butthurt by this kid being brought in. And I think that he not only would not help this kid, I think he hates this kid. I don't think Brett Favre hated Aaron Rodgers. That's just his personality. But I think Aaron Rodgers hates Jordan Love and has no interest in helping him whatsoever. So that is the big difference, like you said. But I do think that he can still learn a lot from Aaron Rodgers in those meetings.
Soup Boss says you're going to find a way to talk yourself into a kind of way before it's over.
Nope.
He also says Rodgers can teach you how to spend holidays alone. He ain't wrong. I mean, he's not wrong. Look, I just think, I don't know. I don't see him in Green Bay. I don't think he wants to be there this year. I really don't. And that's why I feel like Green Bay is going to have a down season. Not only do they not have any weapons beyond Devontae Adams, but they just, I don't see him wanting to be there. And then if they start, it's going to be one of those, if they have a stretch of 2 or 3 bad games, the talks are going to start. And I don't think Aaron Rodgers is mentally capable of dealing with that stuff. So
I don't think the talks are going to legitimately start within the organization, because anybody who knows football knows that Jordan Love is nowhere near ready to take the reins. I mean, it's like drafting a number 1 prospect in baseball out of high school and then saying, well, Mike Trout's going to look over his shoulder if he strikes out.
They're not going to start within the organization, but they are going to start within the media, and the fans might even start booing a little bit. And like I said, Aaron Rodgers is not the guy you want your home fans to start booing, because he is the type of guy who'll take his ball and go home.
I agree.
Yeah. So, all right. So moving on. We talked about this last week, Soup Boss and I. We talked about the NCAA and, how poor it has been for the football season with their ability to get some actual seasons going. You got some conferences shutting down. You got other conferences saying that they're going to play, releasing their schedule, and then you've got teams that are within the conferences that are shutting down, and they're going out there and practicing the same day that the conferences announced that they shut down. So you got a whole lot of discourse. So the next way or no way is the NCAA failed its players, coaches, boosters, and fans by not coming up with a plan to play a full season. What do you say, Wayne?
I say no way, because they shouldn't be playing a season. It's just too dangerous right now. I think that there's no way for them to completely manage it, especially with 136 Division I teams, whatever there is out there, and all the travel and whatnot. And I understand talk about how many hub locations are going to have for 136 teams, and then they're just going to decide, well, we want the top 25 to play, but not everyone else has to play. It just gets really messy. What they should have done right from the get-go, and I said this on the Dad's debate, I said, back in March or February, they should have said, guys, the season is suspended indefinitely. We will revisit in August, September, right? Because that gives you enough time to get a training camp together, have a season, and then you go straight into the bowl games instead of having a month off between the end of the season and the bowl games. Just go right into them. But they didn't do that. They gave everybody, this idea, hey, we're going to have a season, guys. We're going to have a season. We're going to have a season. And they pumped up everybody's expectations, and now there's not going to be a season. When if they just suspended it indefinitely right from the start, you wouldn't have had those expectations. And then right now they should be canceling the season. I think the Big Ten is making a mistake. I think the SEC is making a mistake. Every team should be canceling the season. I think the NCAA should step in and force their hand.
See, that's where I disagree. This is definitely a way. Look, the NCAA, I get what you're saying with the dangers and with COVID and with everything out there. But the NCAA could have turned this around just like Major League Baseball did and say, look, we're not going to send Florida State to go out to Utah and play BYU, but we are going to play interconference schedules. So, you guys are going to stay inside your conference and play inside your conference. The SEC is going to play the SEC. The Big Ten is going to play the Big Ten. The ACC is going to play the ACC, and so on and so forth. And the NCAA just came up with nothing. They had no plan in place, so it doesn't surprise me now that teams aren't playing. It doesn't surprise me now that conferences are shutting down. But the NCAA absolutely could have came up with a plan. Every other league, every other sport is playing, but the NCAA just, all they do with these kids is make money and make money and make money. So the billions and billions of dollars that they make off of these kids, they don't care about the money. One season off isn't going to kill the NCAA. They're still going to have the tuitions. They're still going to have all the boosters. They're still going to have everything that they need to have. But you're costing these kids a year. You're costing these kids a year of their career, or a year to prove what they want to do to move on to the next level, and you're costing them that. And that's not okay. It's not okay. What the NCAA did is atrocious. Absolutely atrocious.
Well, and to quote the movie The Program, this is an institute for higher education, not a football vocational school. And the idea is that, yes, if you're not going to make the kids go to classes, and a lot of these schools are having remote classes right now, if it's too dangerous for the kids to go to class, how can you tell them, but it is safe enough to get on a plane or get on a bus and go to the next game? It's basically prioritizing football over academics. It's prioritizing football over lives. If you're going to protect the life of a science major, the quarterback for the football team equals. They should both be protected the same way.
But see, that where you say like that quote from The Program, look, these kids that are going to play football, let's be real. The starters, the guys that are on scholarship, they're not going to class anyway. And if they are, they're going to major in TV watching. That's what these guys do. That's what these athletes do. That's what these guys who are trying to go to the next level do. Now, granted, don't get me wrong. Not every single athlete does that. There are some athletes who go out and they get their degree and they major in study, and they're far smarter than I'll ever be. So I get it. You look at guys like I can't think of his name right off the top of my head, but he's a genius, a Rhodes Scholar, and he played football. So these guys that are going out there, especially these kids that are in situations where if they weren't playing football, or they weren't playing basketball, or they weren't playing baseball, would be stuck in situations that aren't really good for them. They have to go back to neighborhoods that aren't good for them. They have to go back to homes that aren't good for them. Whatever the case is, you're taking that away from these kids. And these kids need this game. They need what they're trying to do to succeed for their families, to succeed for themselves. The NCAA absolutely failed its players, absolutely failed its coaches, absolutely failed its fans and its boosters, 100%. So let's move on, since I just killed you in another debate. Let's move on with another one.
No facts, as usual.
Hockey is still a better watch than basketball, especially with no fans in the stands. Now, I watched one basketball game today. And I've watched 2 hockey games, and I've watched a bunch of hockey games, but I watched 2 today. And to me, basketball is tough to watch anyway, just because it's kind of watered down now. It's nobody really plays defense, but it is what it is. It's still a competition. I still like watching it. I'm still going to tune in for the playoffs. I'm still going to look and have an opinion on basketball. But I think hockey is just a higher rate of speed. Hockey is more exciting, especially in the playoffs. Any team can win at any time. I don't want to see, you don't get the Lakers Grizzlies matchup, or these matchups where already that this series is going 4 or 5 games and this team is definitely going to win. You don't get that in hockey. There's so much parity in hockey. An 8 seed could absolutely win a Stanley Cup any single year, every year. You've got teams like for me, my hometown, the Blackhawks. Look, this series in the Knights, which they won tonight, so they extended the series. It's 3-1. They're completely outmatched. They're completely outgunned. I thought that they were going to go out and lay an egg versus Edmonton, and they came out and beat Edmonton in 4. So I don't see the same parity in basketball. You get a lot of lame duck series in basketball, and to me, hockey is just a much, much, much better watch than the NBA.
Well, now, what do you think I'm going to say here? Because obviously I'm the NBA head, right? And I'm going to say no way. I mean, listen, nobody watches hockey for a reason. You can say it's a better watch, but there's a reason it has the lowest ratings of the 4 major sports. Hockey fans have become the new soccer fans, right? Remember all the soccer fans talking about the beautiful game and how it's the greatest thing ever? You know why it was the greatest thing ever? Because nobody watched it. So they were cool for being the fans of the thing that nobody liked, right? That's what hockey is. You're fans of something nobody likes. Listen, the reality is basketball is a better watch. It's a faster up and down games. The scores are 110-96, not 2-1. You know, you can talk about intrigue all you want, but seeing people go up and down the ice 100 miles an hour for 2 periods with no scores, why is that exciting to me? You know, like I said, you say it's a better watch, but I think that's coming from the perspective of being a hockey fan. It's like if you ask a Republican who's a better president, Trump or Obama, not to get political, but who are they going to say? You know, you're a hockey fan, you're going to say hockey. I'm a basketball fan, I'm going to say basketball, but I'm trying to be unbiased on this. I'm just going to the statistics, which is the ratings. If it's really a better watch, then how come nobody watches it?
Well, because people don't take the time to understand it. That's why there's so many nuances in hockey, and there's not in basketball. I mean, it's dribble ball, shoot ball. There's not, you know what I mean? Like hockey is nobody understands icing, nobody understands offsides, so people that don't take the time to learn, I wouldn't say nobody. Especially, I mean, you know, as a guy up there in New England, I mean, hockey's huge. And there are a lot of places where hockey is huge and hockey is a bigger sport than basketball.
They have free healthcare there. It's called Canada.
Well, especially amongst youth play. And that's another thing too, that there's the other problem is that, you know, in youth sports, hockey is so expensive. Absolutely. So I remember my son plays hockey, and I remember putting him in, and for the Learn to Skate program, it was like $800 for the season. Like it's a ridiculously expensive sport. So there's another reason why a lot of people don't get into it, is because their kids don't play it. And so I get from a ratings point of view, hockey is just a much more exciting end-to-end sport, start to finish. Even in a nothing game, you still got end-to-end action. A guy's getting hit, or there's a chance on a goalie's making a great save. Them nothing games sometimes are more exciting than a 10 to 12 game. They're just, I mean, you don't get those often in hockey, but they're more exciting to watch just because there's so many more chances, so many more great saves. Like, I don't know, if you think basketball is a more exciting watch than hockey, then you're just, to me, you're probably a boring person, a la Wayne G.
I don't think anyone's ever called me boring.
12 is greater than 9, though. Speaking of which, way or no way, 12 is greater than 9. And why don't you explain to us why 12 is greater than 9, Wayne G?
So I'm not going to take any shots at anybody because I promised not to do that. So all I'm going to say is I'm going to give people kind of a history lesson, which is basically in our industry, we work at a place called RTF Sports, or the RTF Sports Network. We all have shows on there, and everybody likes their own show, and that's understandable, and you should. You know, so I'm a type of guy, I like to bust balls, so to say. I like to throw shade at people just to kind of be funny, and I like the back and forth. I do it. I throw shade at you guys. You throw shade at us. You pretended not to know who Jesse is, you know? So it's like, that's the way we do things, and it's funny, and we get along, and all's good. But there are some people who can't take that. And on an RTF thread, there was a show that I threw shade at being funny, and they took it personally, and they came at me starting to talk about how their show's better than my show, their show's amazing and my show's crap, you know, they're a long-term, you know, juggernaut, like whatever, and I'm just this flash in the pan. And so then I started throwing statistics, because, you know, that's how I like to win arguments, is by actually bringing facts and statistics. And so I brought up the fact that between me and this other show, our show had more views the last month than their show, not only on the RTF page, but on our personal pages where the views are a lot higher. But on the RTF page in particular, you know, they had said to me, you know, 49 views. I remember when I did my first podcast, and it was 49 views for a commercial I did. It wasn't even my podcast. So I found on the RTF page their actual live podcast, like we're doing right now, and they had 9 views. So I sent a screenshot to the chat, and I said, "Oh, was your first podcast last week when you got 9 views?" And so they sent a screenshot of my show, which had 12 views on the RTF page. And they said, "Yeah, look at this." And I said, "Yeah, 12 is greater than 9. And so I thought it would be funny to come on with a 12 is greater than 9 shirt.
You guys were arguing about whether or not 12 views versus 9 views. I saw this little exchange on Facebook. I found it hilarious. I am a guy, and I explained this to our guy over there, Rapid Dave from Strikeout Beer, because we were talking about this a little bit. And I love chaos, man. I'm one of those guys who, when the Patriots decided to trade away Jimmy G, even though everybody knew Bill Belichick wanted to keep Jimmy G, and I thought it would be great if the Patriots, went into when it was during the Super Bowl when they played Philadelphia. It was the same season, and I said, man, wouldn't it have been great if after the Patriots lost to the Eagles, if Bill Belichick during a press conference ripped off his hoodie and he had a Jimmy G jersey on and went over to San Francisco and decided to coach them instead of New England. Like, I'm a big fan of chaos, and I would love to see it more in sports. And I know our business, look, this business is cutthroat. The fact that we have the opportunity to do what we are doing now with the RTF Sports Network, I don't take it lightly. I think we have a great opportunity here. Granted, it's not a ESPN or a Comcast Sports or anything like that, but it's still a platform. It's still a platform for us to perfect our art. It's still a platform for us to do the things that we love to do. The great thing about us is that we're not bound by the politics of a big network. And so throwing shade at other shows, joking around, getting there. Look, some people just can't handle it. And Chad Launder chimes in and says, you're a big fan of being a WWE writer. I am. Look, I love the WWE scenarios. I love the idea of a heel turn. And so, some people can take it. Like, look, you can come at me all day and I'm going to laugh. Like, if you say something derogatory towards me and it's funny, I'm still going to laugh. And I'm going to say, wow, that was a good one. I have nothing left to say. And some people just can't handle that. And I think that there are a couple people that are, within the network that would love to talk a whole lot of crap, but just can't take it. And, I think you found one of them, and I loved every second of it. I'm not going to lie. I loved the exchange. I may have been stirring the pot a little bit in there. I may have thrown a couple of jabs trying to get you to go back at him, trying to get him to go back at you.
But it wasn't needed. I think that you would. I think you would agree because you, like I said, you watched the entire exchange. It was eventually deleted, and like I said, I'm not throwing any names out there because I don't want anyone to get hurt again. You mentioned WWE. I will say that this host starts off a show like Hulk Hogan, like, "Thanks for tuning in, brother, to my show." So maybe you'll know who that is, but but. Like I said, you watched the entire exchange and you saw it all play out. In your opinion, without naming any names or wanting to hurt anyone's feelings, in your opinion, watching the entire exchange play out, if it were a boxing match, what do you think the result of that match was?
Oh, man. Look, I will just say this. One of you guys would have been declared the winner, and one of you guys would have lost. And you're not wrong. 12 is greater than 9, and I'll just say that, and I will let it go there. So there's the explanation for the live viewers who have been wondering what 12 is greater than 9. And it is now time for us to get to our Shop Talk segment. So this is the segment here for you, the fans. Look, we're just going to talk about anything you want to talk about. We're an open book. Me and Supa say it all the time. We'll talk about anything you want to talk about. Anything that is going on, anything that you want us to know, any sports stuff, personal stuff, whatever it is. Wayne G might not be so much open to the personal stuff, but we are.
Oh, bring it. I love it.
I like to be as open and honest as possible. So if you're watching and you want to chime in, let us know what you want to talk about. I'm going to go through some of the comments here. I missed a bunch of them. Chad has been blowing it up. Brandon comes here. Where is your chin? Who are you talking to? And look, if you're talking about me, I got like 4 of them, so you have to be more specific. I don't know which one you're asking for. Chad's throwing some shade. I'll say blow me, Wayne.
All right. Listen, brother, don't say that about my show.
Oh my God, I can't even with you, man. Chad says you play the other 3 sports in your park as a kid. That's the difference, and you're right, and that's what I was getting at. Is that the other 3 major sports that get more attention, especially from the younger viewers, because you can pick up a bat and a ball and you can go play at the park. You can pick up a basketball and go play at the park. You can pick up a football and go play at the park. You can't do that with hockey. And so, I get it. I get why, there's more viewers. Chad, this is for Wayne. How does it feel to be as damn sexy as the guy you are sitting in for? To try to be as damn sexy as the guy you're sitting in for?
Well, I mean, it's not a whole lot of effort. I guess, somebody who remembers the Adams administration, I don't really need, all I need to be is, I just need to be younger than you and I look good.
Oh my, he's only turning 40, right?
Oh, okay. So I'm older than him, right?
Oh man. Brandon Combs Jr., the Blackhawks won today. Is that a one and done, or do you think they will pull a Cubs? I don't see them coming back down from down 3-1, not to the Knights. Anything can happen in hockey, though. Look, if Corey Crawford gets hot and stands on his head for the next 3 games, it's absolutely possible. I never say never, but the Vegas Knights are just a more talented team. They have, hell, even their goalie was our backup goalie last year, who we decided to let go and hang on to Corey Crawford. And they're just a more talented team. I think they'll find a way to pull out one of the next, 3 games. The Hawks might win one more and make it really interesting. But if it goes 7, if they do pull it back and make it go 7, I will say that they may have Vegas pinned against the wall, and I do like their chances. But I think this one ends in either 5 or 6, though. So sorry, bud. I know you're a Bruins fan anyway. So, but the Blackhawks I think they're done. Coming from the guy tossing 50s bebop debate. The only thing I like about Chad being gone is there's no big green turd on the wall. So I don't know if you've seen the show, because I see you chime in all the time. So Chad's got that thing, that backdrop with all the Boston logos, and I always tell him that it looks like he's got a big green turd on the wall because he's got Wally the monster sitting right behind him. Oh man. So your show here, you had a little bit of technical difficulties with the interview for Ronnie Fields. Have you guys talked about getting him back on, or when you're going to get him back on, or?
No, we don't have a date yet. I've been in touch with him, and I'd mentioned that it's really kind of funny that to get him on the phone and to think that I'm actually talking with Ronnie Fields is nuts, and actually seeing him on the video, because we did have him on the video before we got to we had all those technical difficulties. He still looks jacked, like he is like pumped. Yeah. But it was just exciting. He did say he wants to come on, and so we are going to try to work out a date. We had Coach Fields on past Wednesday, which was a great interview.
That was a great interview. Oh my God, that guy! I wanted to comment on there, but I didn't want to do it because I just didn't want it to be unprofessional. But I want to be like, hey, will you come on our show? He was amazing, man.
He's phenomenal.
Yeah. He was a great interview. That had to have been good for you as a host to be able to, because he kind of made it easy, didn't he? Like he almost felt like he was, sitting in as a co-host.
Yeah, and that's what we wanted from him. And again, he answered the questions really well. He had a great personality, very gregarious, very thankful and humble as well. He kept saying, "Oh man, thanks for having me on your show. I really appreciate it." He's just so gracious, and he's so wonderful to have on. And like I said, his name is Coach Scott Fields, and you guys should check out his podcast because he has his own podcast. If you like basketball, this guy knows basketball like nobody else. He's just deep in it, right. And so his stuff is really good. So I'd recommend checking him out. And then, of course, this Monday. Right? Yeah, he coached with the Utah Jazz, the Golden State Warriors, Sacramento Kings, and in FIBA, kind of coaching in Venezuela, Puerto Rico, stuff like that. And then this Monday, we're going to have Silk Kozar on. So he played, in White Men Can't Jump, Blue Chips. I've posted a couple of clips from his movies. He was in 3 to Tango. He played Kevin, the gay football player that kind of has a thing for Matthew Perry. Yeah. He's been in a lot of movies. He's been in movies with Clint Eastwood, with Nicolas Cage, with Denzel Washington. So we're gonna have him on first to talk about acting, but then we really want to get into Blue Chips and White Men Can't Jump and kind of talk some basketball with him, because he actually was on a basketball scholarship. So if you guys want to hear the answer to this question, here's a spoiler so you guys can tune in, a teaser, maybe not a spoiler. I am going to ask him if the rumors are true that Wesley Snipes, when it comes to basketball, is the real chump. Like, he can't play at all.
That should be a good one. Brandon Cole Jr. chimes in with, I know it's early, but do you guys have a prediction for the Stanley Cup Finals? Well, Wayne, I know you don't watch hockey. Do you have a prediction? Probably not.
Somebody will hold up a cup, and about 2 million people will see it happen.
All right. Look, there's a lot of, it's hard to tell right now. It's still early. We're only in the first round. Vegas looks really strong. The Montreal Canadiens look good in that series against the Flyers. Whoever wins that series can easily come out of the East. The Bruins obviously are the Bruins. And so it's really hard to tell right now. So I don't really have a prediction. If you pinned my ears to the wall and said, hey, look, pick something, I would probably stick with the Vegas Knights. I think that they're
probably the Bruins are the Bruins, but Tuukka Rask is out. He's done.
Yeah, and so look, Tuukka hasn't really played to par, and the fact that he left, it bothers me that he left. Like, it bothers me that you even showed up and then decided to leave. So for that, I'm very, I hold that against him. What I don't hold against him is for saying, hey, guys, you know what? Look, I tried. My head's not in it. I'm out. So it's kind of a catch-22 for the guy, because you're going to catch a lot of flack from hockey fans just because, look, hockey, and I've said this before, hockey players are the baddest men walking the planet. I mean, you've had literally, you had a guy die on the bench, get resuscitated behind the bench, and then as he gets resuscitated, ask if he can make his next shift. These guys are nuts. They are crazy, and they are badasses. So when you do something like this, you're going to have a hard time coming back from it, especially in your own locker room. Tuukka is, for me, I'm okay with him leaving because he wasn't playing well anyway, and he obviously his head wasn't in it. But to me, at that point, you probably should have just stayed home to begin with. They do have a very good backup. So I think that they'll be all right. And they're, look, it could be, they could come out of the East. They could come out of the East with a backup. I'm not even going to say that they can't. Anybody in hockey can win. The Blackhawks could still, even though I picked Vegas to win the Cup, the Blackhawks can still come back in this series. Not likely, but it's possible. You just need a hot goalie. And Halak out in Boston is just, he's a phenomenal backup. He was a starter over in Montreal for a little while. The guy is a really good goalie, so they're not out of it yet. So let's see here. What else we got? Wayne is the guy who thinks NASCAR is better than F1 because more rednecks show up. I don't even know what that means, but
maybe the reason that I thought Chad was so much older is because he's the kind of guy who likes to sit on his porch and watch the same car go past his house 200 times. But nobody's watching either one of those sports, my friend.
Oh man, look, I can't get enough of hockey. I love hockey. But all right, so that is all the time we have for now. We are back with you on Tuesday. Soup Boss will be back, and we've got some, our NFC predictions are coming up. Wayne, did you catch the AFC predictions?
The AFC predictions?
Yeah, so we did it last week, or on Thursday. We did our AFC. We did all the divisions, all of our predictions for each division.
I did not. I must have missed it.
Okay, so yeah, we basically, the AFC, we really didn't have any surprises. I think the only big disagreement we had was Jacksonville and where Jacksonville was going to finish. In Indy, the Colts, I value them a little bit higher than what what Soup Boss does, but neither one of us had them win in the division or anything like that. But AFC was pretty good. NFC, we're gonna have some debate there. There's gonna be a lot of go back and forth. You already know how I feel about the NFC North. I already know how you guys feel on your show about my predictions for the NFC North. As a matter of fact, we even have a bet there, don't we, Wayne, with me and that other guy on his show?
I guess so, because you picked the Bears to go 11-5, which is, I think you got it the wrong way around. So you should have flipped your shirt upside down so it said 5-11. Like,
yeah, no, so Jesse says that the Lions are going to be better than the Vikings this year because I have the Vikings winning the division, and I believe he picked the Lions to win the division. I don't like the Lions to be better than 7-9 or 8-8, and so he said that if he wins, if the Lions have a better record at the end of the year than Minnesota, that I have to do a show wearing a T-shirt with his face on it. And if the Vikings have a better record, then he has to do your show with a T-shirt with my face on it. So your show is going to look a whole lot better in January because you are going to have me on it in one way, shape, or form. And so, yeah, it's going to be fun. It's fun to have a little show wages like that. So, Jesse, I will have that T-shirt to you by probably November when Detroit has no chance of surpassing Minnesota. So we'll get you there. All right, guys. So everybody have a great night. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. Wayne, thank you for joining us. And we will see you soon. And again, guys, if you haven't caught Infinity Sports yet, you're missing something. Go check out the guys over there at Infinity Sports. Sully and Wayne G do a phenomenal job. Go catch those guys. And we will talk to you guys on Tuesday with our NFC predictions. Goodbye.
And I run out of patience and run out of pages to write that I run out of pages. I jump on the mic and go nuts on the stages. So fucking amazing and nothing amazes you motherfuckers.